Cowan's garden. Hi Rory.
Hi everybody. Hello, welcome back to another video. Avri's just churning them out every week. Right, what have we got? Where are we going? Oh, let me see now. Hang on, first of all, before we do that, I want to tell you where we are. I want to keep you up to date on what we're doing. Everything Mrs. Brown's Boys is going great. I suppose you've heard the news that All Round to Mrs. Brown's has been recommissioned for a second series. Yes! So that's good. That really is terrific news. It's been in the papers. You've probably heard it, but I want to tell you personally, there's a second series. So I'm thrilled for Brendan. I'm absolutely over the moon for Brendan because it was great. So that's all done. We're in the middle of a tour. I'm just on a quick break at the moment. In June, we're back. We're playing Nottingham, Cardiff, Sheffield, not Sheffield, I can't think, I know we're playing the O2 in London. I'm looking forward to getting back there. And Newcastle, we're playing Newcastle. Can't wait to get to Newcastle. Karen, who runs my fan page, is in Newcastle, so we're having a lunch there. So everything is busy with Mrs. Brown. This is probably the busiest year we've had, with the tour All Round to Mrs. Brown's and the Christmas specials that we still have to film yet. It's a busy year, but that's the way we like it. After the last year in Australia, which was we did all our touring in the first 3 months, and then we had a lot of the year off after that. This year it's go, which is fabulous. What else did I get up to since I last spoke to you? I was a judge on a dancing competition here in Ireland. It was for a charity. It was for Strictly for Legs. It was for strictly four legs animals. And myself, Louis Walsh, we did that, and the fabulous Panty, a female impersonator here in Ireland. And then there was also Dustin the turkey. Some of you abroad mightn't know Dustin, but he's somebody you need to check out. Hilarious puppet turkey.
Linda
He
Martin.
was fabulous, and Linda Martin was hosting it. She won the Eurovision, and this being Eurovision week, and we all support Ireland, I hope, so vote for Ireland. So all is good. And what else was there? I think that's about it. But I mean, isn't that enough?
Well, we have a few questions from fans
Right,
for you.
let's get the questions out of the way.
So, one question is, what was the funniest thing that ever happened to you meeting fans?
Let me see. Speaking of the O2 in London, first time we went to the O2 in London, I think it was 2013 or 2012, I'm not sure what the year was. We were in the O2 in London anyway, and we, after every show, we go out to sign autographs. We go out and we'll meet people and we'll sign whatever they have. We'll have photographs taken. If there's 100 people, we'll meet everybody. If there's 1,000 people, we'll meet everybody. We do this at all the shows, and London was no different. And some of the funny things that happen is people, they tend to lose the run of themselves when they see somebody. Like, they'll come up to me and they'll say, "You're Rory from Mrs. Brown's Boys," and I always go, "Oh, am I really?" But that's just what I do. But that's just a by the by. There was one thing in the O2 in London when we went out to do a signing. There was a guy in a wheelchair, and it was one of these big industrial heavy duty wheelchairs, and it was almost like a bed. Now, two men wouldn't lift it, or 3 men probably would have a hard time lifting it as well. It was a big industrial chair, an electric chair, had a motor on it and everything like this. And he wanted a photograph, and what I always do with kids or people in chairs when they want photographs, instead of me standing up straight, I'll always crouch down, so I could be like this or like this or whatever. So I crouched down and I had my hand behind the wheelchair, looking at the camera, and then the chair started to go really fast to the left in a circle, going round and round and round, and I'm running beside him, and I'm going, okay. After the 3rd time round, I said, "Who's taking this photograph?" I didn't know what was going on, and then I said, "You need to stop." I said, "This isn't funny." And he was falling around the place laughing. This guy was in hysterics. And I said to him, "No, listen, you really need to stop this." I said, "If you want a photograph, let's get the photograph." But I said, "You have to stop doing this." Because I was a smoker, so I was out of breath. And I thought, if I stop, the chair is just going to keep going, and it's going to just spin around and just knock the legs from under me. But somebody said, "No, Rory, you're the one that's doing it." I had my arm around this guy for a photograph, and my finger was resting on a button that was sending the chair west. So it just kept going round and round in a circle because my finger was on the button. And the guy in the chair couldn't tell me. He thought this was the funniest thing that had ever happened to him. Now, of course, by the time I did get to do the photograph, I was like, I was hanging, but I'm off the cigarettes, as you know now. I'm off them nearly a month, so my breathing is much better now. But that was one that I remember, and now it was, again, I didn't think it funny at the time, but about a half an hour later I fell around the place laughing. Looking back on it, I thought it was hilarious. That was funny. That sticks in my mind. Hope that does. Now, oh God, where did this memory come from? Oh, I haven't thought of this in years. It's a long, long time since it must have been the wheelchair. I stole a wheelchair. Well, I didn't think I stole it. I thought it was abandoned, but actually I'm sure I stole it. Myself and a friend of mine. You see, years ago when we were kids, I was a teenager. I was about 12, 13, 14 at the time. My mother insisted that we went to Mass, and she always said, right, you've got to go to Mass, and if you don't go, that's your own business. But she said, I'm not facilitating it. So she said, when Mass is on, you're not staying in the house. So hail, rain or shine, at 10:30 in the morning we were sent out for 11 o'clock Mass, and we weren't to be back before 12:30 on Sunday afternoon. Every Sunday, no matter what was going on, we were sent out for Mass. And she said, I don't care if you go or if you don't go, but you're not staying home. I'm not being part of you not going to Mass. So we used to be sent out. And at that time in Dublin, there was never anything open on a Sunday. Sunday was a dead day. And so walking around Dundrum, which was a suburb of Dublin, out towards the mountains, out towards the Wicklow Mountains where I lived, there was just nothing going on. So I called down to a friend of mine. We'd walk around Dundrum, we'd walk around the old schoolyard, we'd play around in the playground of the schoolyard, or we'd mess about or whatever, kick a ball, do something. And then at 12:30 we'd go home. And but this day we were walking around, we'd looked through all the windows of all the clothes shops, we'd looked through everything, we were doing anything except going to Mass. That was it, we just weren't interested. But this day we were walking up the hill towards Sandyford, and there was a care home on the left hand side as you were going up the hill, and we saw a wheelchair out in the courtyard, and we thought, oh, somebody's at there dumping that wheelchair. It never dawned on us that it could actually belong to somebody in the care home. So we said, right, we'll have a go on that, we'll have a jaunt on the wheelchair. So we were pushing each other around on the wheelchair for about 20 minutes, and then we got bored with doing that. And then my friend, I'm not going to tell his name because he's still alive, and very much alive, and he might not want people to know that he stole a wheelchair from a care home. But we did by accident. We didn't intend to steal it, but we stole it by accident. And we went, and so he said, listen, why don't we go up to my house, he says, and I'll get me granny's fur coat, and we get our hat, and then he says we can pretend I'm in the wheelchair and you can push me down to the church. We go down to the chapel. To think now that, for God's sake, robbing a wheelchair was the only way that was going to get us into a chapel, into a church on a Sunday morning. But anyway, we went up to his house. He sneaked in and took his granny's fur coat out of the wardrobe, took a hat that she had with a bit of net around the front of it, and he had long hair anyway, so he sort of pulled that up a bit, so it was just, it sort of looked like an old woman's hairstyle, and then he had the hat on. And I pushed him down to the church. And we went in the front door, the main door, and he said, I want to go up the front. So we walked all the way up the aisle, and the Mass was on. Mass was on at this time, right? So I pushed him up, and he had his head down, he's like this, as if it was an old lady in the wheelchair. And when we got to where the altar was, and then the sort of the left wing and the right wing of the cross, the church was in the shape of, he said, go left. So I turned left, and with that he jumped out of the wheelchair, and one leg went that way, one leg went that way, and the arms went up, and he went, it's a miracle, it's a miracle. Right? So he let this roar out. Well, he ran, and he ran out the side door. Nobody knew who he was, but they all knew who I was. And then I burst out laughing. And I got hysterical with laughing. So what happened was, I just did all that, and then I ran out the right hand side of the door of the cross of the church. I ran out, but of course everybody knew it was me. They didn't know who he was, but they knew who I was, and they told me mother. She was outraged that we would do something like that in the church, absolutely outraged. And I said, ma'am, but at least you know I went to Mass. She didn't know that we stole the wheelchair, thank God, because that would have been the sin of all sins. But we don't know what happened to that wheelchair. It was left, as far as I'm concerned, it could be still in the front of the altar in the church in Dundrum, I don't know. But that's a memory I haven't thought of in over 40 years. I must have been talking about that guy on the wheelchair in the O2 in London. There you go. Anyway.
You were a naughty boy, weren't you?
Very. Oh, I really was. I never deliberately did things wrong, but trouble used to find us. I remember one time we went up, another time we went up to the Scalp. with friends of ours, and
Mountain,
we
yeah.
tried the mountain. The Scalp is a place in the mountains, and it's all rocks, and there was goats living up there, and we decided we were going to be like cowboys, and we were going to try and lasso a goat. I don't know what made us think that. We tried to, this is terrible now. We lassoed the goat. No, I didn't, it was a friend of mine. He lassoed the goat and the goat ran. But we were holding the rope, and we didn't realise the goat had jumped off the edge. So we actually ended up strangling the goat. It's terrible. Dreadful thing to do. But then we decided, we didn't mean to do it, but let's see now, the goat now could be used as dog food for this friend of mine. He had a German Shepherd called Fritz, so we said we'll use that as dog food. So we brought the goat down and we put it into the freezer in his garage. And the next day his mother came out to get burgers for the dinner, and she opened it up and there's a goat looking up at her, and she screamed the place down. So we never looked for trouble, but trouble always seemed to find us. But I'm sure that's the way with all the kids all the time. But here's me just admitting to killing a goat. Oh my God.
Were you trying to save the goat, pulling it back up?
No,
again?
we were just trying to get it, and then when we got it, we were going to just take the rope. We must have thought it was like a cartoon where you can just take the rope off and whatever. But the goat was trying to get away from us. We were only kids. We didn't realise what we were doing. Anyway, that's what happened. Anyway.
Well, Kevin Taylor from Sunderland has a question for you. He always wanted to meet the Mrs. Brown's Boys cast, and he said, if you had a chance to meet your inspiration, who would it be and why?
Well, Kevin, if you want to go and meet us, you're in Sunderland. Well, we're only in Newcastle, so come to the show in Newcastle, and then afterwards we go out and say hello to everybody, so you'll get to meet everybody there. But to meet my inspiration and why, well, I mean, I'm working with Brendan O'Carroll. You don't get much more of an inspiration than that. I mean, I think that's just brilliant. Brendan O'Carroll really inspires people, and he inspires all of us. So he'd probably be the most inspirational person, but I'm lucky enough to be working with him. But outside of that, let me think, who would there be? I can't. Some sort of sports people inspire me. Do you know what I mean? Like I loved Eddie the Eagle. I mean, you don't have to win, you just have to do your best. I love people who do that, people who give everything. Not it doesn't matter to them whether they win or whether they lose. They just try their best. And there's loads of people like that, and you will see them. People in the Special Olympics, I just think they are such an inspiration. And people in the people with disabilities who are in the Olympics, they don't let the disability hold them back. They go for it. I love to see stories like that. Those people inspire me. But anyway, as I said, I'm working with Brendan O'Carroll. You don't get more inspirational than that. So is that it?
Yeah, well,
I think I wrapped it down a bit, isn't it?
We'll wrap it up. So, as you say, you don't always want to make a very long movie. So, from myself, Avri, Citron, and Rory Cowan here in location in Dublin, Ireland.
My back garden. Look at them in among all my bamboos here. They need to be watered. But anyway, that's what I like. Listen, all the best. Love you all. Talk to you next week.